Shannon, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So for those of you who don't know Shannon, she is a big part of Objective Personality, which is a great class. It's available online to learn more about typology, learn about yourself, learn about the people around you. And Shannon, could you just give everyone a general overview of what your type is and a little bit of what it means?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we have 512 types, so that gets a little messy and confusing when you see the bigger picture first. But just kind of breaking it down, I'm an ENTJ, so it's still the same function stack as the Myers-Briggs, ENTJ part. So, TENI, SE, FI. One thing that we started seeing though early on is that the human needs are connected to the actual function. So once we realized that, we actually started seeing that there were people that were actually jumping their second function. So I'm actually a jumper. I'm TE and SE. So I have two lead extroverted functions and I'm ST. It's a weird one because it's like, well, then isn't that an ESTJ? It's like, yes, but then you have the need for control, the need for OI, I don't have. I wish I did, but I don't have that planner side, the organizer side that the typical ENTJ or even ESTJ has. So that's my type. And then basically just how do you find that out? When we're typing people, we're just first recognizing, okay, what are their human needs? Like above the other one. It's always just some kind of binary coin. So checking, are they self above tribe? What that means is that they're constantly seeking the outside world's recognition, approval before their own internal decisions. So you're just breaking down all the coins to find all the way down to 512. So it's,
Perfect.
yeah, fascinating.
It is fascinating. And I feel like the more that you start to learn about it and see the patterns, the more you realize how real it is and how real
Right.
these patterns actually exist in the
Right.
real world, especially with the jumpers, which has been really fascinating for me. But so OP has kind of coined this term, the sexual modalities.
Yeah.
And I really believe they have a huge kind of component in terms of the affect of a certain function, like how it's translated in the
Right.
real world. And so in your definition, what are the sexual modalities when they're attached to a function?
Right. Okay. So it's funny that we coined it probably the most stereotypical thing that you could ever coin. It's like masculine, feminine. We were just basically stealing from the society what was the normal stereotypical coined terms on purpose, something that people are already communicating and already using. So it is what it sounds like. It's masculinity. It's sort of shovey, non-movable, a little bit more on the coming outward side, the more aggressive side. And feminine is the opposite. It's just flowing, movable, and it's sometimes a little too movable. And every time you have one masculine function, you're going to automatically have your other opposing function be feminine. For instance, TE, if you have feminine TE, you're going to have masculine FI. If you have masculine TE, you have feminine FI, and they yin and yang each other. They balance each other. So it's a very interesting combination when it comes out,
Exactly. Yeah, it is interesting. And so for anyone out there who doesn't know this, so Shannon and I both share a savior function that is masculine TE. So for me, I have it second. For Shannon, she has it first. So we share this similar part. And it's, as I've learned more about this function, and it's been kind of easy to identify once I really understood what it was and what I was looking for in the real world in terms of when I'm seeing people. Like, I feel like, it's my own function. So, but when I see masculine TE, I'm like, oh, that is very much masculine TE. Whereas feminine TE can still be a little bit harder to identify for me sometimes.
Totally. Yeah.
So in terms of when you see, like, how would you explain seeing masculine TE in the world specifically?
Sure. Yeah. Well, what's interesting about both masculine FE and masculine TE, it's like when somebody's describing someone as, oh, they're a very blunt person. Like that's like the bluntness of communication. Like when I say something, like you can hear it, it's like sharp. Like when I talk, it comes out and that is what it is. It's like very to the point and like outward. So like it's a sharp communication. So a lot of times, especially like say for instance, double masculines, they'll have the masculine sensory and the masculine extroverted decider. When they communicate, they're just rolling because there's nothing stopping them. We sort of talk about it like a truck coming down a hill, like they're just brakes off truck coming down the hill because there isn't anything in the way of, I'm able to pull up the information And I'm not stopping and trying to make sure that I soften the way that I say things. So the masculine extroverted decider is just going to say, like, can I just please say it how it is? That's the desire. That's the need of, like, I just want it to come out so we can get this over with. Say it as fast, say it as sharp, say it as bluntly as possible. And when you attach it to thinking, so it's like slightly different with FE, because it's like, it softens it somewhat by being like, I'm annoyed, or you guys should feel this way. It's like, it's coming out, it is pushing out at the tribe, but it's emotion. So that's what softens it just a teensy bit. When it's thinking, it's like, you need, like, here is what is accurate. And it's just like that, end of story. Like, this is the truth. We're done here, So it does come off very just blunt, very, almost aggressive. Sometimes people are very unaware that they're even doing it. Sometimes if you're really listening to it, like, say somebody's more quiet and they have it, you'll hear just little, like, no's. Like, somebody will ask them something. Somebody will ask them a question, and, like, the first word out of their mouth is no, even if that's not what they wanted to respond. It's like, no, I didn't mean that. And it's so funny how fast it will come out of just like, no, like a little tiny arguer,
Yeah, it's so true. And I also see something with masculine TE. It really wants to push that, like, this should be important to you. Like, or this whatever thing that I logically decided is important. This should be important. It's important to me. It's important to us. It's all of us, we together, this is very important.
Right.
And it wants to push that on the tribe, which is just like, it's very, it's interesting because compared to, like, masculine TI, it's not about the we. It's not about, like, we should all understand this. Right. It's like, I understand this, and you should probably know what I think is correct.
Right.
Whereas we, like, TEs, like, we're in this together.
Oh yeah, that's so good. That's another, like, thing that we'll use when typing people. Like, if somebody is a savior introverted decider, they're going to use, like, you could clock it. You can even, like, I don't, but, like, if you started watching them, you're going to hear a lot of me, I, me, I, me, I. The story is me, I, that's most of their world is just trying to figure out self, like, and it comes out in their language. Us TEs will constantly use we, us. It's just it's like, you tribe are responsible for getting on board with this whole thing that we are all trying to do. And it's just an eyes outward kind of thing. Like, you just sort of see yourself as constantly amoeba and connecting to the people around you. Like, all right, everybody, we all got to get this right. Okay. So it's weird not being, like, FE. Like, you want it to be an FE thing. Like, we're all emotionally connected. It's like, no.
Yeah.
We need to do this work together. So let's all work together and get the job done,
Yes, absolutely. I completely see that. And even, I mean, you having it as a first function, it's really I always say, like, the first function is the one that gets all of your other functions on board with what it wants to do. And so for you, it's going to be even more intense, that the fact that it's dragging all the other ones on with it.
Yes, totally. Very, very true. Yeah, that's true.
So, okay, so that's kind of a good overview of how masculine TE looks like in the real world a little bit. But so then the counter to that, right, is the feminine FI as a demon on the bottom, which is also, to me, really easy to see these days, because when someone has an internal feminine FI, it's just so different than that strong savior FI or a strong masculine FI, which is very sure in its values, very sure in what it knows to be, important to its own self. And so feminine FI is movable. It is, and it's kind of sensitive, and it's kind of a baby. So how would you kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, it's so funny when you'll see somebody coming out just being like, and then you're like, okay, so that's easy to see. It's very, very obvious and easy to see somebody coming out as a pretty aggressive, like, truth machine. Like, I need to speak the truth, and the truth is important. And, then, like, something will happen, and then they just buckle. And it's like, you'll see them just sort of like, oh, well, that hurt. Like, why did you hurt me? It's so fascinating, because obviously we're all sort of seeing ourselves inside out. It's so fascinating when you're, like, watching somebody aggressively come out the tribe. And what are they aggressively attacking for? The sake of, I was bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm being bullied. And you're like
Right.
looking at this like giant T-Rex, you know, that's like barking at everybody. Like, I'm protecting myself. It's like everyone's like, we're protecting ourselves, you know, because right, the identity of somebody who has literally like chainsaws for hands when they communicate
Mm-hmm.
is still this like very, very feminine, soft, I'm scared to be attacked, therefore I'm going to pull out my big guns, which is I'm going to come out with truth, I'm going to bonk you on the heads with logic, therefore I can protect my soft inner self.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's fascinating. I always think of it like a lot of times we seem to kind of go inside of our minds and look at our dashboard. And it's fascinating which parts we randomly will lock onto, because it's not the same for everyone. I assumed that there was some sort of like pattern or code to what we were consistently seeing people attach to inside their minds.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will see their demons. That's sort of a common thing. They'll go inside their mind, be like, no, this is me. This is how I see myself.
Right.
And it's fascinating when you're seeing somebody that has such a powerful outside function of masculine logic. Everyone needs to get on board with this masculine logic. And they're just inside their mind staring at this little feminine girl
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, is a 5-year-old or just the softness of, I got hurt. All I'm trying to do is constantly help everyone outside of myself. That's all I'm constantly trying to do. And, you know, that hurt my feelings when they were mean to me. And that's just, it's that kind of consistent understanding of self that will then not lead to like dialing down, bonking on the heads of the tribe, because they're just seeing themselves as like, I just see myself as a very soft flower.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come out, I'm just protecting that soft flower.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because one of the consistent things that we will hear from us masculine TEs is, I don't accept people being mean to me. That's a pretty common phrase, the mean to me fear of the masculine TE. And it's like, it's so interesting. It's like you'll hear the communication from the TEs is very sharp and aggressive, and the tribe has to kind of do a little bit of bracing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they say anything back, when they say anything like, hey, you know, you might want to dial down, it's like, oh, the tribe was mean to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's just trying to protect this little soft inner, you know, baby girl.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And actually I had something written down to hit later, but I'm going to hit it now because it makes more sense. But, you know, I feel like having FI as a function just in the function stack at all versus having FE, like, I feel like often we will say things like, I care more about, I don't want someone to be mad at me versus I don't really care if someone's mad or not. If someone's mad about something, I'm like, sure, hate it for you. Like, I'm sorry. You know, that's just kind of
it's
how
not
it is.
personal. Yeah.
It's not personal, but when it's directed at me, that's a completely different paradigm.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of it, so it's an interesting one because like, what are we tracking with our TE? It's like, yeah, I'll track if somebody's mad, you know, yes, I care if somebody's mad, but it's almost like if you're going and you're seeking validation and you're seeking validation for my logic or how I put the blocks together, or look what I did for you. I did these things. I'm trying to make you happy. I did these things. And then somebody will be mad. And I'm like, do you not like me? And it's basically just, we're getting that FI identity from, if I do these things, then I am valuable. Right. That's the TE versus FI. I did these things for you. Mm-hmm. Now that means I personally have mattering and I have valuing to self. So if somebody is mad at you, it's stripping the I don't have self. I'm now empty of self. I don't have mattering. Therefore, I am worthless. And that's where our extreme like emptiness will come from, because like you'll hear too, like the constant communication is not good enough, not good enough, not good. And you'll hear that from the FEs as well. You'll hear that from all the DEs in the savior state, like just when they're broken down, it's because they're consistently going out, especially the TEs, consistently going out, trying to make things work for others. Mm-hmm. I will help you with this thing. I will fix this thing for you. I will do this. I will do this. Do all of this doing for others of things so that you can then be happy and see me as valuable to the tribe. And therefore I matter. And therefore, if what I'm doing isn't working for that person, then it's not good enough. And then you feel like you're not good enough. So that definitely is, if somebody doesn't like you, you don't exist. That's the struggle with, if you're making the tribe responsible for your identity, then they can also take away your identity. So yeah, absolutely. The self-hate, you know?
Yeah, which is so different than the savior DIs, because they're going out into the world with this sense of, I know that I have value, you know, but then when the tribe isn't accepting it, then it's the opposite of like, wait, I should be accepted for this. Why am I not? You know, I still want it. So it's like validation on both sides, which is always really interesting. But I have really seen with, I feel like one of the easier patterns to attach when typing people to savior DEs is that reoccurring, is it good enough across the spectrum, because it's always ticking in the background no matter what they're doing.
Totally. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, very, very true.
Okay, great. So let's see. Okay, so we're going to kind of get into a little bit deeper questions, kind of just related to the affective masculine TE. But in terms of, once again, like presentation of this function, what are some ways that you think people have taken your masculine TE the wrong way? Like, what are some ways people have perceived it maybe incorrectly or not quite understood it correctly, that, especially as a single decider, may have like led to contention or something like that?
Oh God, yeah, right. One of the things I see that I consistently do when I'm like bonking heads against the tribe is that I will need to logic things out. And it's like a lot of times when I'm communicating and I'm just saying, okay, what about this? Okay, oh, I could do that. Okay, and I'm just talking and I'm needing to just talk it out. If there is another person in the room, which a lot of times that is helpful, like stay in the room and don't react, or sometimes react. Like I'm looking for some kind of pingback, but I also need to work it out. It's one of the most frustrating things ever. Like if you have logic, like do that to yourself. You know what I mean? Like I would love to just have the TI so that I could actually, for my own self, figure out my own logic. Because what ends up happening is a lot of times as you're aggressively trying to bonk things and you're like, oh, that's not the way. Okay, that's not the way. You know, just tossing ideas. Just that one, nope. The other person is now getting involved and it's like, why would you say it like that? Or that's not gonna, like, of course you can't do that. It makes you look, as oddly enough as having the savior TE, it's like, it makes you look kind of stupid because you're going out and you're like banging the most ridiculous ideas against each other. Like, that one didn't work. Oh, da, 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 da. And like somebody's watching the process of your inner world, like, you know, throw away some silly stuff and then getting involved in the process. And it's like, no, I didn't mean that. No, I didn't. And now you have somebody playing the game of going, I can't trust you. That's where the bottom line ends up being like, I can't trust you because I just watched your process. And if you ever like thought that one idea was a good idea, then I don't trust your conclusion of like what you ended up on, because, oh my gosh, why did you think like that? And it's like, well, I know it's messy. I know it's messy, but I'm trying parts out to see what fits so that I can kind of keep going. So that would be a big one. I know that there's a lot, I feel like I have a lot of like miscommunications on, I don't mean that, I'm just cycling through. That one's a pretty big one. Yeah.
So what's really interesting too with how you were saying that is I can hear like your SE in there as well. Because it's like you're trying to, like, you're pulling in and gathering and banging the blocks together, and that's an interesting, because you're kind of processing both parts like more in the real world, whereas sometimes I'll feel as though I realize the information that I'm missing, and then I'm like, okay, well, the tribe knows it also being consumed last. I'm like, well, the tribe has this information, I'm going to go directly to them and demand it of them, you know? And so I'll go in with my information, which I'm like, okay, I need to know exactly these things. Can you please explain them to me? And then they'll be like, oh, okay. And then they'll try to do their best to explain. And then I'm like, no, I'm also missing this and this. Can you please explain this?
Like you already have your laundry list. Like,
yes. And it's just like, and it comes in and it comes out. And then once I'm done, like I'm done. And then it's off to the next thing. And then I realized later, like, how abrasive that is as like a human interaction, that, you know, there's no cordial interaction in the beginning.
Like, how are you doing? What are your needs?
in, get the information, get the heck out of there.
Right. Very true. And like, that's part of like, yeah, they're really good with the NI there. Absolutely. You have that nugget you're looking for. And yeah, definitely. I'm feeling like when we interact with people, if the first thing coming out of our mouth is like, I'm trying to solve a problem, I just need to actually figure this out. And that's the TE. I'm trying to figure something out. Can we just hurry this up? But when you're playing the human game, there's so much emotional and vibe that like, like, oh God, I wish we could just hurry this up and talk about, does this make sense? Does it not? Is it working? Is it not? Like, no, you have to laugh, you have to share, you have to smile. Like there's all this like vibe that like, it's so crazy because yes, of course I have both demon and F. And so it's like, I'm responsible for all this vibe and care. Can we just bang blocks together and
just done with it? Yep.
Yeah, then I can get back to my project.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel what you are feeling. I know what you're going through. Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed that actually when I was responding to, I mean, this was years through being at my same job, but I was responding to work emails and I'm like, I never really start any email with a greeting. I just get right to the, okay, this. And then I was like, other people start with greetings and like nice, like they have some kind of introduction, but then I was like, I'm going to try to do that. And I just literally didn't know what to say. And I was like, what is appropriate in this situation to communicate warm feelings before I go in?
Oh my God. I can't even tell you how much I relate to that. Like, because Dave and I would be writing emails and of course it's like, we're doing it as a business and he would look at my emails and he's like, no, not say that. And I'm like, what? Like, I am telling them all the important information and it's just a straight robot. Like you could have just pulled it off of like the dictionary and just slapped it in there. Hello, I will meet you at this time. Okay, great. Thank you. Bye. Like what? Like you can convey emotion in an email. Anyways, he's like, and then he would rewrite it just with so much like I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like humanness. Like, just like every word had some kind of like connectivity to it. And I'm like, okay, I give up. Like I really, really suck at doing this. And so I started like just putting emojis in. I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I hate emojis. They're just so annoying. Like I don't want to see somebody going, with emotions because it's just like, keep your emotions. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. Blah, here's my stupid, silly, happy face to just somehow convey some kind of connectivity in my robot speak. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's so relatable.
Right. It very much is.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of pinging back now to the FI. So we have this stronger outside world, right, that we communicate with, the very logical, get to the point part. But so one thing that I've noticed, and you've mentioned it too in classes, is when someone directs the attention on your DI, how uncomfortable that can sometimes be for someone with this TE function, and especially I feel like masculine TE makes it even more so because you have the feminine FI at the bottom. But when someone brings attention to, oh, wow, you did this so amazingly, or wow, you were just so great in this way. I mean, I can speak for myself in this, but it's very, very hard for me to take in a appropriate way. And I've learned to just say thank you and just sit at that. And that's like the best I can do. But then if someone continues to go on it, it just increases in how it's very uncomfortable. So how would you translate that in your own words?
Oh yeah. I'm the same way. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, it was a genuine life learning lesson on how to just say thank you, because I would just turn into like a mush pot of like, thank you. I learned it from that person, just instantly wanting to like skew the attention. No, that person is the one that helped me. I didn't actually come up with it on my own, or you could buy that thing at the store. It's not mine. I am like just instantly wanting to like scatter the self-importance. It's just, and you're like, what's really going on there? And I just, over the years, I've started realizing that a lot of what we are doing in a savior state with the DE is just constantly trying to equalize, pulling up the guy below us and making us equal, pulling down the guy above us and making us all equal. And if somebody goes pushing you up above the crowd or pushing you up above them, it just puts you in this weird spot. Like you're like, oh no, I'm out here by myself.
It's not fair anymore.
Not fair. It's not fair. I don't have my tribe, which is who I rely on to, you know, give me the validation or just the consistent ping back. If I'm pushed up above everyone, everyone's going to hate me because they're going to think I'm better than them. I'm not better than them. Let me quickly equalize as fast as possible. So yeah, 1,000%. It's been, a life lesson to learn how to just say thank you and accept the elevation. And one thing, like, I've heard this a lot from a lot of the people that we've been typing, because we just type some of the most amazing people out there. And a lot of the DEs, especially EJs, will talk about how they had to get comfortable being out on the top and being lonely. And that struggle of like being and rising above. And one of the people that we were typing, I think might have been more recent, but she said, if I stay here in this lower area, in this lower vibration or lower area of economic, not moving up in life, I can't help them anyways. And it just, you're like telling your DE, here's how you would actually help the tribe. If you do rise above, then you can lift them up. But yes, for a while, for a time, it's going to be pretty lonely out there. And that's the natural urge to just be like, don't look at me. It's not me. I bow down, all those weird gestures that all the DEs do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very, very true. It's all stuff I'm seeing too.
Yeah. And I find too that, so like compliments in general are uncomfortable. I realize this is just kind of a funny side note. The only time I'll kind of accept them is if they are like specifically like related to a demon that I happen to like pull off. So like if it's my saviors, like forget about it. Will not accept the compliment. Like I'll always deflect, like of course. Yeah. And it's not a big deal. It was easy. I don't want to bring attention to it.
Right.
The thing I was already good at. But then like the cup that was on the top shelf that fell off and I caught it, that before it hit the ground, like I'm going to be like, did anyone see that? That was like the best thing I've done all day.
That's so good. Right. That's very interesting. Yeah. I bet I've seen that 100 times. Absolutely. It's now something that I would be proud of showing off. And then we lock that and be like, I'm really good at catching things up.
Yeah, did you see that? It was really good. Didn't break this time. Broken 20 other times before, but.
Right, but that's the one I'm going to remember. That's the one I'm going to take with me. I love that. That's good. I'll have to store that in my NI bag.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so in terms of, we talk about FI being the function that is related to, what do I like what is important to me? Yeah. And I realized, going through the class and learning more about this, that on a regular basis, I'm not as aware of what I like in most situations. And to me, I kind of relate it back to the fact that in my normal programming, I'm rationalizing everything's importance. So in a daily scenario, I'll be thinking, I'll be going through life, and if I have a tinge of I may like this or not like this, immediately my brain goes to be, well, that's not relevant to what's happening right now. Yeah. There is something more important that is, that logically we need to think about and relate to, versus if you like it or not, like that doesn't matter.
Totally.
And so, how would you say, how aware are you of the spectrum of what you like and dislike, maybe earlier in your life versus now?
Right. That's a really good question. Yeah. So absolutely, exactly what you're talking about. I feel like what happens to us that have the demon FI is if the FI happens to align with the logic and it makes sense to do that thing, then we'll accept the values, the self-values. But if it's something just way off the wall of like, I want pickled ice cream right now randomly, and it just doesn't align with for the whole tribe, you're just practicing a consistent shoving away. And so the more that you practice shoving that away, the more it's just not relevant to you. And it's funny because a lot of like the demon FIs will talk to you and they're like, I know what I like. It's like, sure, if you're staring over in that direction and you're like, but I do know that I like that kind of ice cream and I do know that I want that. If I'm staring at it and if I'm acknowledging it, if I'm looking for it, right? Right. Absolutely. We'll be aware of what we like. We'll know what we like, but the consistent practice of I have to throw away my own desires and my own needs for the sake of make it work easier for the people around me, then you're not going to hone in what you like. So it's not going to be practiced. It will still be pretty childish, you know, like maybe it is so silly. It's like, I like this kind of ice cream and it is that ridiculous. And you're not honing in. How do I like blend what I care about and what I like about something and kind of develop that identity of this is how I want to see myself. This is who I am. This is what I value. This is what matters to me. We're not spending the time over there. We're just not, because it's a constant shoving away because it just doesn't make sense. And so it's like, if you were to ask somebody, do they know with Demon FI, do they know when they're hurt? It's like, yeah, they're going to know when they're hurt, but it just, the whole entire practice is an extremely awkward and bizarre one of like, I'm sad. Why am I sad? I don't know. It's stupid. And that's what we're like, for our brain is forcing the existence of. It's stupid that I'm sad right now. The horrible thing about that is a lot of times the only way that you can actually process those emotions, and by the way, get back to work, is to stare at the emotions, live in the emotions, sit there with how am I feeling? What happened? Is it true? Is it real? How can I actually build into my identity a different pathway based on these extremely negative emotions that I'm dealing with? But because we're not staring at them, because we're not acknowledging them, they get shoved down into a very deep, dark cauldron. And that's what blows up later of, I now need to care about myself. And it's a lot of times a very childish desire that isn't blending with the logic of the tribe at all. It's super childish. It'll come out and it will be a very tantruming, very negative effect on the people around you. But do you know when you're hit? Yeah. You know? Yeah. And the more you go through the years, it's like, yes, I know I'm hit, but I also know how to get back to work. But now you just look like this weirdo from the outside. Now you think you're pulling it off. You're pulling it off. Like, what? I am back to work. No, I'm fine.
I'm fine. Yep.
And the outside world is like, it's pretty clear to everybody out here that you're upset and you're now acting in a very aggressive way of like, get job done, get out of my way, because you're trying to like harbor the chemicals that you just shoved in a jar.
Right.
You know?
That's a good way of saying it.
Right. Like you know what you feel. You just also immediately shove it as fast as you can to an unconscious so you can get back to work. Because that's where the real priority is, getting back to work.
Right. So. That's so true. And that's where we're just like, this is the easier place, the easier route to go to is to go back to work like that. I found it interesting when I'm talking with, a lot of times it's actually like the savior DIs who are really comfortable in their internal world. And when they are, when they're really doing their demons and I've been in situations where I've been, you know, like we've said, you try to keep the temperature of the room and you try to make things easier for everyone. And I'll be doing that. And then they'll come out and be like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what is important to you in this situation?
Right.
And then I'm just like I'm almost taken back. And it's like, it takes me processing time to get to my sleep in that situation where I wasn't expecting to have to use it.
Absolutely.
And I was like, well, it doesn't really matter what I think is important, right? They're like, no, it does. So why don't you tell me? And it's just like, you feel like this little kid who's getting reprimanded.
Yes, totally. Because like the tribe knows that you're going to be pissed later if you don't also get your needs met.
Right.
Like they're not confused about that. Because like what we'll do is we'll go and we'll make the whole room happy. And then the whole room wants to go to, you know, some taco place that you're like, I don't like that taco place. I don't want to go there. But like, you're not allowed to have a vote. Right. But you're like, I just wish everybody would have also picked something that I like. Yeah. So you're just sitting there going, well, I don't like anything here, but let me suck it up because for everyone else. And everyone's like, stop doing that.
Right.
You know, they know. They know later they're going to pay for it. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about of like, I think what happens in that moment, at least this is what I'm like consistently seeing, is that if somebody asks you what you want, it starts like the TE just starts cranking all the way up. If I say that person doesn't like it. And if I say this, that person's not going to be able to eat that. And if I say this, that person, like, you just can't, like the TE just goes on hyperdrive of like, I want that, but I can't. I want, I can't. I want this, but I can't. Because that just, I'm going to offend somebody in the room by saying what I like. And so you just come out like a sheepish, like, I think I want some tacos. Like, it just is so embarrassing when it actually comes out. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just talked like a 5-year-old girl. I can't believe that. But like, that's what ends up coming out. It's just a little girl saying what they like and going, please don't hate me. I'm sorry. I like it.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because it's like the contrast to seeing us in our normal habitat, in our savior state of being like, this is how it is. This is how it's important. This makes sense to you. Yes, yes, yes. And then it's like such a simple question to so many people, and we just can't freaking get on board with it. It's like, I mean, it just looks so, to me, I'm like, wow, that's so dumb that I just can't do that sometimes. But I mean, at least I could.
Very illogical. Yes. Exactly. It is the most intense swing you can have. So like all the way to 512, Tony Robbins, masculine TE, feminine FI. So it's like that kind of swing. Just this pow, 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 pow logic. This is how it works. It doesn't make sense. It makes sense. It works like this. And then just, I don't know. I like flowers. It's just this extreme, you know?
Yes. It's literally very, very extreme. Okay. So this is going to be kind of like our like ending segment here in terms of how, so we're kind of getting there with the FI, but really more on the feelings and emotions, how we're weird with our own feelings, but then also not having the FE function. And so being weird with, so how does masculine TE perceive the feelings of others?
Annoyed.
Not happy about it.
No, like stop having emotions. It's fine when somebody's happy because that means that things are flowing. I'm happy that you're happy. I don't even get that elevated if somebody is happy, but I'm like, okay, I'm happy that you're happy. That means my thing worked.
Right.
You know, that's just the general, like, great work, check mark, moving on, you know, like that's sort of how it feels. But when somebody's mad and it like, if they're mad, like you were saying earlier, if they're mad and they're mad for something on their own, I will try and help make their life easier with my something logic TE, whatever, to make their life easy, to help them out. But if they're mad at me, like if it gets directional,
right.
I'm like, the problem ends up being is that my TE is like, nope, nope, nope. You did, you did, you did, you did. Like it goes through just 1,000,001. Nope. The outside world wouldn't say that that's the way to do it. Nope. Like just so many millions of TE things come in of like, I have logic and reasons of why you shouldn't be in that state because I did all the things right. I did all the TE that was needed. If you're in a bad mood, you're on your own. And that's like, it just feels absolutely offensive. It's crazy because of course, like, you know, like, it's funny, like right now I have like written on my board, like I'm responsible for the FE of the house because I just resist it so much. Like if you're in a bad mood, you're on your own, deal with it.
Yep. Oh man, so relatable.
Right? Like, but it's like, how many things did I not, that I wasn't conscious of that I was doing? Because I can't even, my voice sounds normal to me. I don't even know how sharp it sounds from the outside perspective. I just know that it does. I know how blunt I can be. I've watched other people of my type. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go stare at Chelsea Handler and be like, okay, that's me. So if that's me, okay, I could have a hard time because that's pretty blunt. That's pretty aggressive, you know?
Right.
And just knowing that my extremely narrowed perspective of reality and how much I'm actually missing, I'm now having to track my environment, my objective environment for the truth. Because all I want to do is just be like, nope, my perspective says I did all the things right. Therefore, if you're in a bad mood, it's you.
Yep.
So now I'm having to go, okay, so you're in a bad mood. There's probably 100 dominoes that I set up that then finally knocked this over and caused that negative reaction. A bad mood about something or something upset me that I'm not even taking responsibility for. So I'm in one of those weird, let's get things done mode, not acknowledging that I'm the one that's actually upset and creating a negative vibe for the room. So that's been one of like the most traumatizing things to realize is that a lot of times when I'm getting tribe hate, which is somebody is mad at me, it's because I've been mad and I'm not acknowledging it. Therefore, I'm stifled inwardly and I'm negative inwardly and therefore not outpouring positivity to the people around me. Like,
yeah, that's so good.
Like that, yeah. So if somebody's mad, it's most likely because I'm mad and I'm not in a giving, loving state. Therefore, everyone around me is just clenched.
Yeah. You know? Bracing for impact.
Right. Really good.
So a little background for the people who are watching this is when I had first joined the class, I wrote my email to introduce myself, and I had kind of come into the class at a point in my life where I was realizing without realizing that I did not have the FE function. I didn't really understand FE, knew what it was. I was just at the place in life where I realized I could not respond to the sensory chaos of other people's FE emotions. And I was like, I see that this is a deficit in my person and I need to figure out how to fix it, because this could potentially be worse in other situations in life if I can't deal with it now. It's obviously a problem, you know?
Right.
And so I had written this email to you guys and had explained how I was having to deal with someone who was in an emotional situation and I just did not know what to do. I couldn't trigger empathy in myself. I couldn't rationalize an appropriate FE response to this other person. And you were the one who picked up on it right away. And it was like, that's masculine TE. Like the very first email, which was
like, I know what that feels like.
And it was just so interesting because then as I started to learn more about the functions and that you had this function as well, I was like, yeah, it really can be identified. I mean, and even with people I've seen that even savior TIs who have that FE function, even if it's a demon, I realize they still have FE. They still have more FE than I do. Even though I'm a tribe over self person, I just don't have, you know, they're going to be more Darren Brown, they're going to be more Gary Vee than I can. I can simulate those sort of interactions, but they always have it more than I do. So that's just been so interesting really to see.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, I know. I've seen that too. Like you can have demon FE at the bottom, but still be like, oh, this is the appropriate response to someone in this state. 1,000%. And yeah, like I was saying, I think the thing for me where I fail when I'm not able to respond is 1,000% because I'm not comfortable with my own emotions. And therefore I'm not comfortable emoting, period. Therefore I don't feel sort of released to be able to share emotions with anybody else. And a lot of that too is just if I'm not putting in the constant practice on how to move through emotions, then I don't even want to go in that realm because I haven't done the workouts there. If I'm not able to quickly get out of a negative state and back into a positive state because that hit some childhood memory of mine feeling for that other person, then we're going to be here for 5 hours and I can't afford that. And I've noticed that the FEs will just be able to sort of keep on the surface a little bit, be able to like bounce down with somebody, hurt with them, cry with them, and then bounce right back up. And I'm like, okay, right. And I think a lot of it is like, yes, of course, it's their brain wiring and what they're just used to having to do. But I'm realizing like the more that I actually connect with how I'm feeling and then also practice moving through my own feelings, that when it comes time to cry with someone, I'm not as like traumatized as I used to be, but like I literally have been working on this probably just every single day for the last decade, 10 hours a day at least. Like that's how much it's been like traumatizingly hard to just be like, okay, how do I move out of a negative emotional state? How do I process my feelings so that when somebody needs to emote with me, I can then give and share. Like you'll notice like on our videos and stuff, I'm constantly laughing. I even let myself cry in a couple of the classes. And a lot of times it's so frustrating because I'm like, oh, stupid feminine FI, like stop, please stop. Like it just makes me so mad. Once something hits me, I'm like, damn it.
All over.
Yes. Like, but letting myself be seen as an more emotional person is like what has stopped me from being as robotic as I used to be. Like I
Yeah.
want to share that connection. If I don't share that emotional connection, then and it doesn't work. I can't, the blocks don't fit very well. I can't bring them together, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I understand. That's been like life journey type stuff, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be, you know?
And I think that's a good perspective to have, though, because it's like, you know, I've had to realize, like, when I originally went into type and kind of learning about stuff, I kind of initially went in with the mentality of like, I'm going to figure out how to do this and then I'm going to be good. But then you
Right.
realize that it's a practice. Like, it's a lifelong practice. I'm
Yeah.
never going to be a natural FE
Right.
in the world. And
Right.
it's just something that I need to constantly monitor for myself and check in and practice those things, like you're saying, is like getting in tune with your own emotional state and processing your own emotions to be able to simulate FE in other scenarios. And I was reading, I saw this like little meme the other day, and it was someone had, the person who wrote it must have been like TE of some sort, but they wrote, if you're sad, or if someone is sad, it's not your job to fix the situation. It's your job to sit there and be uncomfortable with them. And I was like, oh, like I was like, that's kind of like true, because another part of that TE is like, you know, we do want to just fix it and solve it.
Yeah.
And solve
no emotions.
Yeah. You know, and fix it and make it better, because, you know, we're still obligated to the tribe. We're still obligated to want to make things work for them. But the thing is, it's like that FE and TE contrast. It's like making an emotional state work is like you're trying to combine oil and water. You know?
I know. I totally know. That is such a good one. Because yeah, that 1,000%. I don't want to sit with you in this pain, because it's so uncomfortable. Like the TE just seems like it's an absolute repellent to negative, like pain, period. Like negative emotion, pain. And it's so crazy. Like watching Dave, like when we're talking like pain tolerance, right? Like I have just extremely low pain tolerance, like terrified of pain, that kind of thing. And I've gotten a little bit better over the years, like pregnancy helped, you know, like having to get so many shots and stuff like that, but like extreme low pain tolerance. And Dave has like higher pain tolerance. Just like he'll put on himself negative emotions to learn something, negative pain to learn something, like masculine FI likes to be able to shove on self, pains on self, right? Self-pressure. And it's fascinating to watch the oil and water of like, I know that my brain is naturally desired to get out of chemicals at all costs, no matter what. And if they go high, if they go low, just get away from chemicals, keep in a very robotic state. And just, yeah, like what you're saying there, it's like, if we let ourselves, then we don't ever actually go through the like growing process, because what it takes is to sit through those chemicals and ride the entire wave. Like all the way till it gets back to the other side. So I'm right there with you. Like, yeah, that one definitely gets me. And it's been consciously knowing what's going on really helps. Like actually knowing like, okay, it's just this game of my brain is telling me I'm on fire, but I'm not on fire. It's going to be okay. I'll make it.
Exactly. And that's something that's so true. I've realized that as well. When I've pushed myself to ride the wave of that really, and sometimes it's emotionally uncomfortable situations, or for me it's like sometimes like pushing myself to go through like a socially uncomfortable situation, like having to go to like a networking meeting, like God forbid. I'm like, and I will build it up so much in my own internal world of like, this is the worst thing, I can't believe I'm gonna have to make myself do this because it's correct, I know I should do it logically, it makes sense. And I'm just I'm fighting it tooth and nail until the point where I go and I get through it. And then I'm just like, well, I didn't die. Like, it was okay. Like, I made it. It wasn't like the most amazing thing, but like I survived. And then you kind of realize it helps to reprogram your brain of saying, well, do you know what? That is a survivable situation, you know?
Totally. Yeah, that's so good. That like the practice of moving towards the negativity. And two, like one thing that I've realized is if I sit there and I actually ask the emotions, like, what are you like, I hate this is so dumb, I hate this, and I'm never like actually asking what is it that I'm resisting. Because a lot of times it literally is, it might even be as simple as somebody is not going to like who I am and the way that I interact with things. And I just don't want to deal with that bullshit. Like it is sometimes as simple as that, of like, somebody's going to get mad. I'm not going to be able to TE and make everything work. And I'm going to have to sit there while people are uncomfortable. And I just don't want to go through it. And like asking the FI, like, is it true? Is it real? Is that actually going to happen? Or are you just really scared of, you know, loss of validation in some way, shape, or form? Like, oh, wow, you caught me. Okay. Yeah. That's not actually going to happen unless I make that happen. Yeah. And so like when you get through it, like when you do ride the wave and you're like all the way through, you're like, okay, I feel better. It's like, because it didn't happen, you know, like all your fear, like, but what if it does happen? Then it's also consciously being like, okay, it did happen. Somebody didn't like me and it was a negative situation, or there was so much chaos and it broke my project, and all of those struggles and things did come true. See, I knew it. Don't go do that thing ever again, you know? And now your brain is like getting trained to listen to
the bullshit.
Yeah. And like the more conscious we can get of like, what am I actually afraid of? What am I resisting? Then we're like, okay, I know that I'm just scared at this part right here, and I can still make it through that. If I have something like that happen, I can still make it through that. I can practice over time and I can get even better at that thing right there, you know?
Right. And that's why, like, that's a huge reason of why I like OP so much, and just the objective tracking of someone's functions, because it's like, if you're basing your type off a type that's not actually your type, this tool doesn't work for you. Like, I know, right? You know, typology in general is, to me, like, all it is a tool. It's a tool for, it's so TE and I freaking hate it, but it's a tool for understanding yourself and for understanding others, you know, right. And it helps, and there's other reasons too, but like, it's a tool. And it's like, if you're using the wrong tool to like build your dresser, and you're like, this tool is going to be the right one because I know it's the right one for me, and I'm going to build this, your dresser is going to fall apart. It's like, right. You're not going to build something that's substantial. So it's like basically worthless to spend your time, right, you know, in that way. And so that's why I think it's just, you know, like you're saying, when you're noticing like these lesser areas of yourself and you're able to be like, okay, I know I'm going to be struggling in this area. It's like, you only know that if you're looking at the correct type of yourself.
Oh yeah, totally. 1000%. Yeah. I see this op stuff is not like the answer to the world, but I see it as like a compass. So if you're already like, if you're heading from Florida to Alaska, you can get there eventually, you know, you're just like, okay, I went on foot, or I took a car, or I backtracked, I went in circles for a while, like, but eventually you might make it to Alaska, right? This stuff is just it's a compass. It's a compass and a map of like, all right, so if I were to put some attention here, it would be like right in this area. And honestly, like what I see, like, so say you don't know your type at all, like what would you even do if you don't know your exact 512 type, or even, you know, your Myers-Briggs type? Like the reality is, if you move towards stuff that makes you uncomfortable, like if you just simplify it and you just move towards that alone, you're going to at least be moving somewhat in the right direction to Alaska, because all of our bodies are like, this is uncomfortable, don't do it. And therefore you're not able to look at, what does the project need? What does my goal need? What does my family need? You're not able to see those things because there's extreme resistance in your brain. So even if you have no idea what type you are, or you're like obsessed with being this type, you know, really kind of overworking the typing game, you miss the whole opportunity to actually go somewhere with your life. Like, this is just a small tool to help you in the right direction. By the way, you could just do the same thing by pushing yourself towards things that make you extremely uncomfortable. Because there's plenty of alphas out there in the world that have no idea what type they are, because they just went, I'm tired of being a bitch. I'm going to move towards negativity. I'm going to put myself in an extremely uncomfortable situation so I can get out of my own way. I can get out of my hell.
No, and that's a great thing to kind of end on. I think that I completely agree with that 100%, because it's like, if we are, you know, the things that repel us as humans and the things that we're like, oh, I don't like this, this is uncomfortable, whatever,
Yeah.
we're allowing ourselves to be slaves to those things. So we're allowing those things to have control over our entire future because
Right.
they make us uncomfortable. And it's like, wouldn't you want to be able to control your either emotional state or your physical state or whatever it is in those uncomfortable things so that they wouldn't be roadblocks for you moving forward, you know?
Right. Right.
And so I'm such a huge, I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it. If someone doesn't know their type, like the thing that makes you feel like the worst, the thing that makes you like want to cringe on the inside, like figure out what that is.
Right. And then do more of it. Yeah. 1000%. And like, honestly, it's like, okay, it's time to be a grown up, time to be the adult, time to do the things. It's like eating broccoli, you know, like I don't want to eat broccoli. Like, yeah, that's what's going to make me a grown up.
Yeah. Just freaking do it. Get over it. It's not about, and of course it's going to sound easier. Like we're going to make it sound easier in some ways because we're just like TE, like it doesn't matter what you like, you know, just, like it would make sense for you to get to that place. But and
then when you're in your demon state, you're like, this is impossible.
This is very bad. This person is crying next to me right now and I'm the only one in the room.
I know.
Through a trapdoor. So anyway.
For them?
Yeah, exactly. For them, they're probably like, I thought I was in a bad situation, but now I'm with this girl who's obviously like going through something worse.
Oh, so good. Oh God, I know, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's of course easier said than done, but yeah, at least you know I like if you have growth mindset, you're set because you could just be like, all right, I'm going to just push towards the right movement in life. I'm going to push towards that negativity, all the stuff that makes me super uncomfortable. And if I don't win today, I can win tomorrow. And if I don't win tomorrow, I can win the next day. And the more you put in those chips over time, the more you're moving towards, you know, the Alaska in your life.
Right. Exactly. So good. Well, thanks so much, Shannon, for coming on and just joining me in this masculine TE journey of today and life, because I feel like we're on it together.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Lindsay, thanks so much for setting this up. I've had such a blast.
All right. Well, I'll be seeing you in class.
All right. Effie hugs.
Yes. Effie hugs.